People who are very feminist and want to believe that a more gender equal world is possible might cling to these stories because it's like, oh, patriarchy is just an invention. Actually, in hunter-gatherer communities, women are hunters. Hell yeah, that sounds great. That's super empowering and emboldening, just as Barbie Land might be emboldening.
There has been a paper published recently, which is called The Myth of Man the Hunter,
Oh,
Women's
yeah.
Contribution to the Hunt Across Ethnographic Contexts. Have you read it, and do you have any thoughts on that?
So this is a paper, and the way the media often reported it was saying, hey, women can be hunters too. So it's true, but beneath the headline, there are a few more complexities. So women might hunt, but hunt small things. And that's because before the modern era, women were spending 60% of their prime adult years either pregnant or nursing. So, when you can't control your fertility, you've got a bunch of kids. And so it's a very, very risky situation for a woman with all those children to just go off on the hunt for a couple of nights into the bush, right? That would be a very, very risky strategy. Across cultures, we very, very rarely see women going off into the bush for nights on end to be tracking a big deer. That very rarely happens. So it might be something smaller, like building a small trap for a small prey, like a rodent or something like that. So, for example, I spent 18 months living in Zambia, including in rural areas in the bush, where men engaged in illegal poaching. Never once did women go off on illegal poaching. That's a very dangerous thing with, an overnight trip. Women would never do that. But the kids, the young kids, would teach me how to trap a rat. So if you need me to trap a rat, I'm there. I've got all the rat trapping skills you need. So one is the small animals, and secondly, there are a couple of methodological issues in that paper. So sometimes, they classify a society, if it has female hunting, as like either 1 or 0. So even if women, only hunt like one day in a year, like on Christmas Day or whatever, Christmas Day hunt, then it would still be categorized as having hunting. So don't worry about that. But people sometimes like these. So this goes back to our earlier discussion about confirmation bias. People who are very feminist and want to believe that a more gender equal world is possible might cling to these stories because it's like, oh, patriarchy is just an invention. Actually, in hunter-gatherer communities, women are hunters. Hell yeah, that sounds great. That's super empowering and emboldening, just as Barbie Land might be emboldening. And, while we might like those stories of powerful, strong, tough women, it's a bit of a fabrication. Now, and going back to the point about being open about evidence, I think we can just engage with all that evidence without being so ideologically consumed, right? So what if men were hunters? That doesn't mean that men are naturally superior. That doesn't mean that our society has to have male leaders. It's fine. Fine, most societies have men hunters, whatever. It doesn't have any normative implications. For feminists, it may be a nice story, but we don't have to rely on stories to learn about cultural diversity. Like when I was saying earlier about the Mongols, there really were women who hunted on horses and who were celebrated as warriors. So some of these stories are actually true. One just needs to look at the evidence and work out which ones.